This is from the Post Millennial. HIM's CEO walks back support for Gaza camp activists after stock loses $210 million. Talk about the wrong side of history, my dude. I love this story because it's two birds with one stone. It's a double whammy. So basically, he said, where's a stupid quote? He goes on to say, like, oh, I didn't mean to support the violence or anything. I'm talking about peaceful protesters. So this is a guy from, what is it called? His and Hers or whatever?
Yeah.
Hims?
This is like the online wellness company.
So he puts out a post saying, like, if you are protesting, we'll hire you because, we believe in it. And then their stock starts tanking, right? Mm-hmm. My dude, he only made it worse. Moral courage is this is his post. He said, moral courage is greater than a college degree. If you're currently protesting against the genocide of the Palestinian people and for your university's divestment from Israel, keep going. It's working. There are plenty of companies and CEOs eager to hire you, regardless of university discipline. Apply here.
That's a lie.
You want to know why they lost $210 million in stock? The first reason is I'll pause. I'll put a hold in that one, and I'll come back to the number one reason. The number two reason why they lost stock is because he's supporting these violent protesters who in Portland just admitted to torching 15 vehicles, threaten to torch more. And people are like, dude, you're supporting violence. And so he tries to walk that back. But it's actually really simple why he lost $210 million. Okay, I'll break it down for you. When you say moral courage is more important than a college degree, imagine a business that says, we here at Jim's Auto Mechanics don't care if you know how to fix a car. We care if you don't like Israel.
That's correct.
It's like, I'm not going to get my car fixed by a guy who doesn't know what he's doing but hates Israel. That makes no sense. HIMS hires people, this is his admission, there's a strong possibility he's done this in the past, he's intending to do it in the future, and he tried to do it just now. They hire people who have no idea what they're doing simply because they hate Israel. Okay, that does not a good company make. All right, I'm not going to go to a baker. I'm not gonna go to a baker who has no experience baking but hates Israel. That just makes no sense.
Look, I think his shareholders should thank him. At least he said it out loud. We're hiring people who aren't qualified and only screening them for politics. There are a ton of companies, I'm looking at you, Airbnb, who are probably doing this because it aligns with their politics, but it doesn't actually, but they're just pretending they're not doing it. They're not addressing it. They saw him make the misstep and they're like, well, we'll just do it and not tell anyone. At least this guy's being honest.
Well, even him to say moral courage, people have different morals. So what if your morals are shitty, So it doesn't even make sense.
Well, yeah, what is moral courage? Like,
what is
obviously,
moral
he's basically saying agreeing with me ideologically is more important than a college degree. Because I got to tell you, if like the morals a person ascribed to were fascistic or white supremacist, he would not hire them. Mm-hmm. And like a guy coming out and being like, do you know how hard it is to espouse my views? He's gonna like beat up in the streets. It's like, you gonna hire that guy? No.
Well, and he's not hiring Nick Sandman, the kid who got screamed at that pro-life protest, right? Like, no Christians moral courage, just this moral courage.
That's an interesting thing too, is you see like these college kids out there with their crop tops getting down into the prayer pose for Islam, and they're like praying to Allah, and you're like, if you saw a bunch of Christian kids out there praying on campus, they would be roundly mocked and vilified. But if you're out there in crop tops showing off your body praying to Allah, like somehow that's some kind of moral superiority. They don't even believe in it.
Right. I also assumed it would be in some ways offensive to people who are practicing Muslims. Like, I know when I was in Turkey and visited a mosque, like, you have to be covered. That's part of, like, to them, showing respect to their culture and religion,
can't have a
right?
crop top.
So, no. At least from what I remember, you're not even allowed to show your elbows. You have to cover all the way down to your ankles. Like, if that's how the standard they hold for themselves, why is it okay for the privileged college students to get around it?
In an earlier segment, I broke this down as it pertains to college degrees, but for IRL audience members who have not heard that, I will explain to you. If a person comes to me and says, I'd like a job video editing, my qualifications are a college degree, I'd say, okay. Another person comes to me and says, I'd like a job. My qualifications are, for the past 4 years, I have run my own channel editing videos. Here they are. I'd go, interesting. And then a third person comes to me and says, I would like a job video editing. My qualifications are, I hate Israel. I'd say, well, I need a video editor, not an activist. So your resume goes right in the trash. And then between the college degree and the real world experience, I'm going to go with the person who's got a portfolio and has been working for 4 years, not someone in college. So don't make that mistake. I see that super chat already. I'm not saying college degrees are a skill, but certainly I understand that a person who went to college for video editing probably knows how to edit videos.
Yeah.
They just have a harder time competing with someone who's been working in the real world for 4 years.
Absolutely.
Now, if you were to compare a college degree with someone who has no degree but just hates Israel, what is wrong with you? You can't hire that person. That makes literally no sense.
And there are plenty of like ambitious college students who know what they want to do. They get the degree and they also develop a really nice portfolio, work on the side. Like it's the being able to say, here is what I can produce. Here's the deliverable product that is aligned with what you're looking for. But for all of this, I feel like what HIMSS is also communicating is like, we actually don't care if you have any tangential related skill. We prefer to know that we are hiring people who are involved in this. And that seems crazy to me. How is your business going to run?
I also think people just anyone can give themselves the term activist. I'm an activist. You don't need a degree, don't need a job. You're just like, I'm an activist. An activist of what? You can just put that in your bio and then that makes you sound more important.
I'd like to work for your company. What's your qualifications? I'm morally courageous. What morals? I'm not saying, but I am. Hire me.
Well, but I think this guy figured out that it wasn't, in fact, that great for his business. And that's why he had to walk it back and show that he had absolutely no moral courage by any standards at all. He didn't stand for what he said he believed in. And
it's apparently still dropping. I don't know, like the stock is still going out after hours trading and stuff like that.
I mean, if he really believed in it, he shouldn't have walked it back. You know,
he also should have learned the Bud Light lesson. Do you know what I mean?
No,
yeah,
but he's more important than that.
He walked it back saying, like, I don't support violence, anti-Semitism, or intimidation. I just mean, like, the peaceful protesters.
I just mean, like, the good part, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the blowing up of cars and all of that. That's so peaceful.
But, I mean, if we're talking about just the Columbia protesters, you mean, like, the telling Jewish students on some occasions that they can't enter the property, or, like, the tearing down of barricades and fighting with police? I mean, come on, dude. These people are all standing arm in arm with each other. They protect each other. They call it a diversity of tactics. Their slogan is respect the diversity of tactics. That means if you disagree with someone's violence, you have to still support them in doing it, because we all want to. That's what they call it. Diversity of tactics. One group gets violent. And what would happen is you'd have people at these protests, like Occupy Wall Street, for example, and the subsequent protests surrounding them. And they'd say, hey, guys, stop fighting with cops. You're not helping. And then they would all go, respect the diversity of tactics. Mm-hmm. What is that? That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Imagine you have like a general, and it's like a war front, and he's like, if we go to the west, we'll be outflanked and destroyed. So we have to go north through the forest and then cut west and then south to flank our enemy. And then someone goes, I know. How about we all do random things and then we'll have a diversity of tactics and strategy. They're going to be like, we'll lose in 2 seconds. We need to focus our forces on a plan.
Well, you're not respecting their feelings. They're not feeling encouraged or supported.
The real reason for the quote-unquote diversity of tactics is so that people who don't agree with violence are convinced to support violence, because the real tactics and strategies of those who are organizing these things is to be violent. And then when newbie activists show up and they're like, I don't know about fighting with cops, I'm like, well, you shouldn't, and that's cool. We respect you. But you have to respect the diversity of tactics, because not everybody does the same thing, right? Right. So we're going to need you to help us build this thing right here. These people would go to these meetings where they're like, we're here to have a meeting. And what they're doing at the meetings, they're making weapons.
They're making shields.
They're making clubs too.
They're learning self-defense. Like UCLA at their Gaza camp, they had a time period where they were teaching each other self-defense using sticks and making shields out of garbage cans. They were destroying that kind of stuff. And meanwhile, what I think is so crazy is they don't know what they're demanding. They say, divest, but they don't really know even what that means. And instead they're saying, meet with students, grant us amnesty.
These people are sad that they cannot buy homes and have jobs. That's what's happening here. Okay?
But they don't know that they're sad.
Yeah, they don't realize that, but that's what's happening. They don't have real jobs.
But this is what the Democrats have fomented,
yeah.
And it's unfortunate. But this is the reality. And so the challenge then is you have these people who are ripped from the timeline, effectively, of like what a human is supposed to do.
Yeah,
you're supposed to work from a young age. This is really, really funny. There was the Republican who said, we want to get young people jobs. And he was talking about 17-year-olds. And I tweeted, ironically, that's what we need. Kids need jobs. Let's go. And the left takes it absolutely seriously. Like I'm saying 5-year-olds should be in the mines. And I'm like, well, if you're 7, maybe you help with the dishes or something.
Sure.
If you're 10, now you're helping with the yard work. You're 13, you're mowing the lawn, or whatever age makes sense. I think I was mowing the lawn when I was like 10. Like, yeah, you're supposed to do work. There's supposed to be some job you do. Back in the day when when we were small family oriented communities and your dad was like a farmer, the kids worked. The kid would go out and they'd be like, hey, go feed the chickens.
Well, I mean, how can these people work when they're afraid of the air?
Well, the issue is that they've never worked at all. So they go to school until they're 24. That's like, you are.
It is a while.
Your development never happened. Okay, so like a kid is developing and learning how to survive in the world, but these college students are isolated in institutionalized learning facility bubbles where they learn nothing. They have no idea how to survive, and now they're angry and they're just smashing things.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a quick story. You guys ever hear about that woman who was raised by wolves?
Sure.
There's like a bunch of instances. They found a woman who, like a woman, they found like an 11-year-old girl that was super long hair and filthy and living in the wilderness to some degree or something like that. I should say there's numerous stories of this. I think the more recent story is, there's a couple examples. Remember that young girl who escaped the family house and she talked really weird? So there was one woman, a young girl was kept in the basement by her family or whatever, never learned to speak. They could not teach her to speak. By the time she was like 18, she could only say single words like hungry. And that you couldn't have a conversation with her because the neural pathways never formed for that kind of social interaction. These people who are in universities, I don't see how you course correct and say, here's how you survive.
Here's how you work.
Here's how you work. Here's how you make money. Here's how you produce value. Here's how you get food. The end result, of course, is they're going to be low IQ individuals who are not wired to survive properly because they were placed in these boxes by this system of predatory loans, just churning them in and out. And now they're confused, angry, and purposeless. And this is what you get.
I think the desire for purpose is one of the biggest issues facing all of these people. I think it faces a lot of Americans on both sides of the political spectrum and a lot of age groups. But, to go back to your example of chores, kids at a young age feel gratified by completing small tasks, right? They want to help, they're curious, they're looking for it. And if you are basically never giving them the chance to practice that, like I do something, I accomplish something, I feel good about myself, I develop the discipline to continue to take on more and more complex tasks, then of course they reach the end of these expensive degrees and are looking at themselves like, but what am I supposed to do now? I thought I was supposed to just hang out and get to say what I wanted to and sort of live off mom and dad for the rest of my life. Like it's such a, I don't feel a lot of sympathy for any of these people because you could always have chosen a different way to live. But I do think that it's this overbearing sense of purposelessness that drives people into these causes because they think this is where I'll feel like I'm needed and I get something and I'm validated and I'm accomplishing something. Like,
yeah, it is that sense of community, but I do feel bad for them in the sense that it is hard to get a job. You need to have like all these years of experience. It's not, we were kind of sold this lie that you go to college and then you graduate and then you'll be able to get a really good job and then you'll be able to buy a house and you'll be able to afford to live. And most of these people can't even afford like their own apartment. Like a lot of people have roommates or you're just not able to get a job.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.